Warning! Kinda Murdery contains adult themes, explicit language, and descriptions of violence. It is not suitable for anyone, and we recommend you stop listening now.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Kinda Murdery, a true crime podcast that's mostly about murder, and always about the strange and compelling stories that arise when the path less traveled twists to darkness, and those who walk its shadows surrender to violence and corruption. I'm your host, Zevon Odelberg. We have a perilous journey ahead, so thank you for lending me your courage and good company. Leonardo Notarbartolo strolls into the prison visiting room, trailing a guard as if the guy were his personal assistant. The other convicts in this Eastern Belgian prison turn to look. Notarbartolo nods and smiles faintly, the laugh lines crinkling around his blue eyes. Though he's an inmate and wears the requisite white prisoner jacket, Notarbartolo radiates a sunny Italian charm. A silver Rolex peeks out from under his cuff, and a vertical strip of white soul patch drops down from his lower lip like an exclamation mark. It's Leonardo Notarbartolo's story, a book that is yet unfinished, that I'll be telling you today. Hi everybody, I hope you all had a wonderful holiday and are looking forward to a joyous and prosperous new year. To all the Kinda Murdery listeners that may be affected by this epically intense and terrible weather from the Midwest to the East Coast, I hope you're all keeping safe and my heart goes out to you. Alright, I hope you're as excited as I am because the story of Leonardo Notarbartolo, and by extension the Antwerp Diamond Heist, the largest diamond heist in the history of the world, well, my friends, that story is a doozy. Let's get back to Mr. Notarbartolo now. The last name Notarbartolo belongs to one of the main aristocratic families of the Sicilian nobility. It originated during the Middle Ages and gave to the island numerous personalities who've made significant contributions to its social, political, intellectual, and artistic life. The different branches of the family collected over the centuries numerous fiefdoms and noble titles. As for Leonardo, perhaps his noble title is World's Greatest Diamond Thief, but we'll be getting there. The emblem, the coat of arms of the Notarbartolo family, was confirmed to Admiral Ludovico Notarbartolo by King Robert of Anjou in an act dated July 14th, 1314. This is an old family, folks. The coat of arms depicts a golden lion prancing on a blue background, crowned and surrounded by 7 stars, representing the 7 naval victories that members of the Notarbartolo family contributed to during the war against the Ghibellines. There have been eminent Notarbartolos for almost 1,050 years. That's right, for over a millennium. The recorded history of this illustrious family begins with Bartolo Notarbartolo, who died in 979. He was governor of Pisa and secretary to Holy Roman Emperor Otto I. 914 years after the passing of Bartolo came Emmanuel Notarbartolo. He was the mayor of Palermo, the director general of the Banco di Sicilia, and the mafia's first eminent victim when he was killed in 1893. It is perhaps then somewhat ironic that Leonardo Notarbartolo has been accused of having mafia ties himself, an accusation which he rigorously denies. And that's right, I've already mentioned him, but today I'm here to tell you the first part of the story of a modern Notarbartolo, a man who still lives, and who is surrounded by a mystery that seems to have been solved, as well as a mystery that remains. I am of course referring to Leonardo Notarbartolo, who was born in Palermo, Italy in 1952 and is famously the mastermind behind the Antwerp Diamond Heist, the largest diamond robbery in the history of the world. That is the eminent Notarbartolo family luminary that I'll be telling you about today. Although my telling of the Antwerp Diamond Heist was synthesized from multiple sources, the most important of those by far is a Wired magazine article by Joshua Davis, published in March of 2009, and entitled, The Untold Story of the World's Biggest Diamond Heist. Much of the narrative you'll hear is taken directly from it. My kudos and gratitude to Mr. Davis. And as always, my sources can be found in the show notes. Now, if you're ready, I suggest that you put your personal items underneath the seat in front of you. Stow your carry-on in the overhead compartment. Let go of the cares of the day, but make sure your seatbelt is fastened. There's turbulence expected ahead. Kinda Murderies. Where is Leonardo Notarbartolo, mastermind of the Antwerp Diamond Heist? Starts now. In February 2003, Leonardo Notarbartolo was arrested for heading a ring of Italian thieves. They were accused of breaking into a vault 2 floors beneath the Antwerp Diamond Center and making off with at least $100 million worth of loose diamonds, gold, jewelry, and other spoils. The vault was thought to be impenetrable, aren't they always? It was protected by 10 layers of security, including infrared heat detectors, Doppler radar, a magnetic field, a seismic center, and a lock with no less than 100 million possible combinations. The robbery was called the heist of the century, and even now the police can't explain exactly how it was done. The loot was never found, but based on circumstantial evidence, Notarbartolo was sentenced to 10 years. He always denied having anything to do with the crime, and refused to discuss his case with journalists, preferring to stay silent during the first 6 years of his incarceration after his arrest in 2003. Silent, that is, until he decided to sit down in 2009 with reporter Joshua Davis from Wired magazine. These are Davis's words. Notarbartolo sits down across from me at one of the visiting room's 24 small rectangular tables. He has an intimidating reputation. The Italian anti-mafia police contend he is tied to the Sicilian mob, that his cousin was tapped to be the next capo di capi, the head of the entire organization. Notarbartolo intends to set the record straight. He puts his hands on the table. He's had 6 years to think about what he's about to say. I may be a thief and a liar, he says in beguiling Italian accented French, but I'm going to tell you a true story. It was February 16th, 2003, a clear frozen Sunday evening in Belgium. Notarbartolo took the E19 motorway out of Antwerp. In the passenger's seat, a man known as Speedy fidgeted nervously, damp with sweat. Notarbartolo punched it, and his rented Peugeot 307 sped south toward Brussels. They hadn't slept in 2 days. Speedy scanned the traffic behind them in the side view mirror and maintained a tense silence. Notarbartolo had worked with him for 30 years. They were childhood buddies, but he knew that his friend had a habit of coming apart at the end of a job. The others in the team hadn't wanted Speedy in on this one. They said he was a liability, and Notarbartolo could see their point, but out of loyalty he defended his friend. Speedy could handle it, he said. And he had. They had executed the plan perfectly. No alarms, no police, no problems. The heist wouldn't be discovered until the guards checked the vault on Monday morning. The rest of the team was already driving back to Italy with the gems. They'd rendezvoused outside of Milan to divvy it up. There was no reason to worry. Notarbartolo and Speedy just had to burn the incriminating evidence sitting in a garbage bag in the back seat. They were accused of breaking into the Antwerp Diamond Center's super-secure vault and stealing $100 million in diamonds, gold, and jewelry. The loot was never found, but their trash was. You know, my daughter Daisy, Zevon here of course, is in the Scouts. The Boy Scouts, actually, they take girls now, and one of the Scouts' key tenets whenever they're out camping or out in the wilderness in any way, something that they preach and police strictly, is the tenet of leave no trace. Leave no evidence of yourself having been in the wild, in the wild. And this story, this particular point in the story, this moment, with Notarbartolo and his sweaty, panicked friend Speedy, is a good example of why leave no trace is important, not just for Scouts, but especially for high-end criminals. Alright, back to the story. Notarbartolo pulled off the highway and turned onto a dirt road that led into a dense thicket. The spot wasn't visible from the highway, though the headlights of passing cars fractured through the trees. Notarbartolo told Speedy to stay put and got out to scout the area. He passed a rusty, dilapidated gate that looked like it hadn't been touched since the Second World War. It was hard to see in the dark, but the spot seemed abandoned. He decided to burn the stuff near a shed beside a small pond and headed back to the car. When he got there, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Speedy had lost it. The contents of the garbage bag were strewn amongst the trees. Speedy was stomping through the mud, hurling paper into the underbrush. Spools of videotape clung to the branches like streamers on a Christmas tree. Israeli and Indian currency skittered past a half-eaten salami sandwich. The mud around the car was flecked with dozens of tiny, glittering diamonds. It would take hours to gather everything up and burn it. "I think someone's coming," Speedy said, looking panicked. Notarbartolo glared at him. The forest was quiet except for the occasional sound of a car or truck on the highway. It was even possible to hear the faint gurgling of a small stream. Speedy was breathing fast and shallow. The man was clearly in the midst of a full-blown panic attack. "Get back in the car," Notarbartolo ordered. They were leaving. Nobody would ever find the stuff here. The job was done. Patrick Pease and Agim de Brucker arrived at the Diamond Center the next morning. They had just received a frantic call. The vault had been compromised. The subterranean chamber was supposed to be one of the most secure safes in the world. Now, the foot-thick steel door was ajar, and more than 100 of the 189 safe deposit boxes had been busted open. Pease and de Brucker were stunned. The floor was strewn with wads of cash in velvet-lined boxes. Pease stepped on a diamond-encrusted bracelet. It appeared that the thieves had so much loot they simply couldn't carry it all away. Pease and de Brucker led the Diamond Squad, the world's only specialized diamond police. Their beat was the labyrinthine Antwerp Diamond District. 80% of the world's rough diamonds pass through this 3-square-block area, which is under 24-hour police surveillance and monitored by 63 video cameras. About $3 billion worth of gem sales were reported there in 2003, but that's not counting a hidden world of handshake deals and off-ledger transactions. Business relationships follow the ancient family and religious traditions of the district's dominant Jewish and Indian dealers, known as diamantaires. In the year 2000, the Belgian government realized it would require a special type of cop to keep an eye on things and form the squad. Pease and de Brucker were the first hires. De Brucker called headquarters asking for a nationwide alert. The Antwerp Diamond Center had been brazenly robbed. Then he dialed SecureLink, the vault's alarm company. "What's the status of the alarm?" he asked. "Fully functional," the operator said, checking the signals coming from the Diamond Center. "The vault is secure." "Then how is it that the door is wide open and I'm standing inside the vault?" de Brucker demanded, glancing at the devastation around him. He hung up and looked at Pease. They were up against a very rare breed of criminal. About 18 months earlier, in the summer of 2001, Leonardo Notarbartolo sipped an espresso cafe on Hoveneerstraat, the Diamond District's main street. It was a cramped, narrow place with a half-dozen small tables, but from the corner by the window, Notarbartolo could look out on the epicenter of the world's diamond trade. During business hours, Hasidic men wearing broad-brimmed hats hurried past with satchels locked to their wrists. Armored cars idled tensely while burly couriers with handguns wheeled away small black suitcases. There were Africans in bright blue suits, Indian merchants wearing loops around their necks, and Armenians with reading glasses pushed up on their heads. Billions of dollars in diamonds passed by the cafe's window. During the day, they traveled from office to office, in briefcases, coat pockets, and off-the-shelf rollies. At night, all those gems were locked up in safes and underground vaults. It's one of the densest concentrations of wealth in the entire world. It's also a thief's paradise. In 2000, Notarbartolo rented a small office in the Diamond Center, one of the area's largest buildings. He presented himself as a gem importer based in Turin, Italy, and scheduled meetings with numerous dealers. He bought small stones, paid cash, dressed well, and cheerfully mangled the French language. The dealers probably never knew that they had just welcomed one of the world's best jewel thieves into their circle. By his own account, Notarbartolo had pulled off dozens of major robberies by 2000. It wasn't just about the money anymore. He stole because he was born to be a thief. He still remembers every detail of his first robbery. It was 1958. He was 6. His mother had sent him out for milk, and he came back with 5,000 lira, about $8. The milkman had been asleep, and young Leo rifled through his drawers. His mother beat him, but it didn't matter. He'd found his calling. In elementary school, he filched money from his teachers. As a teenager, he stole cars and learned to pick locks. In his 20s, he devoted himself to the study of people, tracking jewelry salesmen around Italy for weeks just to understand their habits. In his 30s, he began to assemble teams of thieves, each with their own specialty. He knew picklocking experts, alarm aces, safecrackers, guys who could tunnel under anything, and a man who could scale the sleek exteriors of office buildings. Each job brought a different mix of thieves into play. Most, including Notarbartolo, lived in or near Turin, and the group came to be known as the School of Turin. Notarbartolo's specialty was charm. Acting the part of the jolly jeweler, he was invited into offices, workshops, and even vault rooms to inspect merchandise. He would buy a few stones and then, a week or a month later, steal the target's entire stock in the middle of the night. Antwerp provided a wealth of opportunity and a good place to fence hot property. A diamond necklace stolen in Italy could be dismantled and its individual gems sold for cash in Antwerp. He came to town about twice a month, stayed a few days at a small apartment near the diamond district, and drove home to his wife and kids in the foothills of the Alps. When he had stolen goods to sell, he dealt with only a few trusted buyers. Now, as he finished his espresso, one of them, a Jewish dealer, came in and sat down to chat. "Actually, I want to talk to you about something a little unusual," the dealer said casually. "Maybe we could walk a little." They headed out, and once they were clear of the district, the dealer picked up the conversation. His tone had changed, however. The casualness was gone. "I'd like to hire you for a robbery," he said. "A big robbery." The agreement was straightforward. For an initial payment of 100,000 euros, Notarbartolo would answer a simple question. Could the vault in the Antwerp Diamond Center be robbed? He was pretty sure the answer was no. He was a tenant in the building and rented a safe deposit box in the vault to secure his own stash. He viewed it as the safest place to keep valuables in Antwerp. But for 100,000 euros, he was happy to photograph the place and show the dealer just how daunting it really was. So, he strolled into the diamond district with a pen poking out of his breast pocket. At a glance, it looked like a simple highlighter, but the cap contained a miniaturized digital camera capable of storing 100 high-resolution images. Photography is strictly limited in the district, but nobody noticed Notarbartolo's pen cam. He began his reconnaissance at the police surveillance booth on the Schupstraat, a street leading into the center of the district. Behind the booth's bulletproof glass, 2 officers monitored the area. The 3 main blocks of the district bristled with video cameras. Every inch of street and sky appeared to be under watch. The booth also contained controls for the retractable steel cylinders that are deployed to prevent vehicular access to the district. As Notarbartolo walked past, he began taking pictures. He headed toward the Diamond Center itself, a gray 14-story fortress-like building on the south end of the district. It had a private security force that operated a nerve center located at the entrance. Access was blocked by metal turnstiles, and visitors were questioned by guards. Notarbartolo flashed his tenant ID card and breezed through. His camera captured crisp images of everything. He took the elevator, descending 2 floors underground to a small claustrophobic room, the vault antechamber. A 3-ton steel vault door dominated the far wall. It alone had 6 layers of security. There was a combination wheel with numbers from 0 to 99. To enter, 4 numbers had to be dialed, and the digits could only be seen through a small lens on the top of the wheel. There were 100 million possible combinations. Power tools wouldn't do the trick. The door was rated to withstand 12 hours of nonstop drilling. Of course, the first vibrations of a drill bit would set off the embedded seismic alarm anyway. The door was monitored by a pair of abutting metal plates, one on the floor itself and one on the wall just to the right. When armed, the plates formed a magnetic field. If the door were open, the field would break, triggering an alarm. To disarm the field, a code had to be typed into a nearby keypad. Finally, the lock required an almost impossible to duplicate foot-long key. During business hours, the door was actually left open, leaving only a steel grate to prevent access. But Notarbartolo had no intention of muscling his way in when people were around, and then shooting his way out. Any break-in would have to be done at night, after the guards had locked down the vault, emptied the building, and shuttered the entrances with steel roll gates. During those quiet midnight hours, nobody patrolled the interior. The guards trusted their technological defenses. Notarbartolo pressed a buzzer on the steel grate. A guard upstairs glanced at the video feed, recognized Notarbartolo, and remotely unlocked the steel grate. Notarbartolo stepped inside the vault. It was silent. He was surrounded by thick concrete walls. The place was outfitted with motion, heat, and light detectors. A security camera transmitted his movements to the guard station, and the feed was recorded on videotape. The safe deposit boxes themselves were made of steel and copper and required a key and combination to open. Each box had 17,576 possible combinations. Notarbartolo went through the motions of opening and closing his box and then walked out. The vault was one of the hardest targets he'd ever seen. Here for a moment, Wired reporter Joshua Davis takes us back to his first-person interview with Notarbartolo. Says Davis, Notarbartolo leans toward me in the Belgian prison and asks if I have any questions so far. It is a rare break in his fast-moving monologue. There is a sense of urgency. He is allotted only 1 hour of visiting time per day. You're telling me that the heist was organized by an Antwerp diamond dealer, I say. Bravo, he replies, smiling. What about your cousin? Notarbartolo's smile disappears. Notarbartolo was born in Palermo, Sicily, and members of his extended family have long been dogged by accusations of mafia connections. Those accusations reached a crescendo in 2008 when anti-mafia police arrested Notarbartolo's cousin Benedetto Capizzi, claiming he was about to become the new leader of the Sicilian mafia. Notarbartolo says the Italian authorities traveled to Belgium soon after the heist to question him about Capizzi's possible role in the robbery. If there is an organized crime link, it could be that Notarbartolo invented the story about the Jewish diamond dealer to distract attention from what really happened. Notarbartolo scoffs at this idea and insists his cousin had nothing to do with the heist. The reality, Notarbartolo says, is that he thought the vault was impregnable. He didn't believe it could be robbed, until the dealer went to extraordinary lengths to prove to him he was wrong. Like any Hollywood heist movie that you may already be familiar with, the Antwerp diamond robbery ultimately had two key components. And what were those components? Well, in a sense, this would be the classic showdown between an immovable object and an unstoppable force. Meaning, like with any heist, there would be a target, the immovable object, and an unstoppable force. And that unstoppable force was Notarbartolo's crew, a team of larger-than-life expert thieves, each with his own highly evocative nickname ripped straight from the pages of a screenplay. But before we cover the crew, let's take a look at the target. The Antwerp Diamond Center vault was protected by 10 layers of security. There was the door, which had number 1, a combination dial 0 to 99, number 2, a keyed lock, number 3, a built-in seismic sensor, number 4, a locked steel grate, number 5, a magnetic sensor, and number 6, exterior security cameras. Once you made it through the door and into the vault, a Herculean task on its own, then your job was not done, because now there were the countermeasures built into the vault itself. These were measures 7 through 10. Number 7, a keypad for disarming sensors. Number 8, a light sensor. Number 9, an internal security camera. And number 10, heat and motion sensors. Sounds like a near impossible job, and yet, with less than half the membership of the famed cinematic antiheroes, the Notarbartolo 5 put the fictional super thieves from Ocean's 11 to shame. Who were the Notarbartolo 5? Well, there was the Mastermind, Leonardo Notarbartolo himself. Then there was Speedy, Notarbartolo's longtime friend, described as an anxious and paranoid man. He was the one responsible for scattering the trash in the woods, and the nickname Speedy was most likely the alias of Pietro Tovano. Next up was the Monster, a tall, muscular man. He was apparently an expert lockpicker, electrician, mechanic, and driver, and he was very, very strong. The Monster was most likely the alias of Ferdinando Finotto. Next up was the Genius, a specialist in alarm robberies, most likely the alias of Simon, an electronics expert known to be linked to a series of robberies. And finally, the King of Keys, an older man, described as one of the best key forgers in the world. His true identity is unknown, and he remains the only member of the crew to escape apprehension by the police. And frankly, my own imagination is so enraptured by this amazing cast of characters that I almost regret having to use them as a tease. But tease you I shall. If you want to hear more, tune in this Sunday, New Year's Day, for part 2 of Where is Leonardo Notarbartolo, Mastermind of the Antwerp Diamond Heist. Until Sunday, I'm Zevon Odelberg, and this has been Kinda Murdery.